Major cities across the United States on high alert following the airstrikes that the U.S. and Israel launched against Iran. Those killed top leaders, including the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Police departments in places like New York City and Los Angeles are increasing patrols at diplomatic missions, cultural institutions, and religious sites. For more on this, let's bring in Bernard Zapor. He is a former ATF special agent in charge, also faculty associate of terrorism and justice studies at Arizona State University. He also has worked extensively undercover. So as you assess the situation in this country, Bernard, how concerned are you that there will be some kind of blowback from the Iranians?
Well, we're very fortunate in that the blueprint and for our response to this has been laid out with the almost 2 decades worth of our involvement in the Middle East. And through the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force and Department of Homeland Security, sharing operational law enforcement intelligence, we have the ability to be in front of state actors as well as people that would be criminally radicalized, for example, in the country that may be of concern. So there's a lot of work on the front end on criminal intelligence and contact interviews to gather information about people that might do something here domestically. And that is shared at all levels of law enforcement. So very confident about our ability to get in front of potential acts.
We're just getting word that the US Consulate in Karachi, Pakistan, is under some kind of an attack. Attack might be too strong a word, but hundreds of protesters apparently have stormed the US Consulate in Karachi in response to the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran. And of course, it brings back memories of what happened at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran in 1979, when really our terrible relations with Iran began. It's not just in this country, obviously, Bernard, that Americans have to be concerned at this moment.
Absolutely. I mean, we're dealing with 1,000 years for revenge, essentially, of radicalized Islam and people that call to what they believe is the duty in response to the U.S. involvement in the region. And it is something that is anticipated, and we have to anticipate and do everything we can to make sure it does not touch the domestic U.S. or our citizens abroad.
We know that, well, millions of people crossed the border under the Biden administration, many of whom we don't know anything about their background or where they came from, who they are. How concerned are you that there are sleeper cells, Iranian sleeper cells in this country right now who are waiting to do the bidding of whatever government was there or is established out of the rubble?
It's a legitimate concern, and it has been found and documented in the capture of Middle Eastern men that are coming from various parts of the region with a very central ideology, anti-U.S., anti-Israel, here in the U.S. illegally for the purposes of causing disruption and terrorism. So it's something that is an active concern and a very proactive, let's say, investigation or operation to identify and remove such people, but they have been documented and found here. It is a legitimate concern at the moment and has been for some time.
Can the FBI and agencies like the ATF, can they get a handle on some of these people who've made it in?
It's really interesting. After the attacks of 2001, there was very quickly lists developed, for example, of Middle Eastern men that were on expired visas in the United States. They had followed the profile of the original hijacking conspiracy at the time. And there was extensive contact interviews done, which yielded a lot of information as to motive and intent, some of which was not nefarious. It was an attempt for people to make money in this country, but even though they're here unlawfully. But that blueprint is carried forward in the following 2 decades. And so very confident that there is the ability to intercept when known, but we still have to have a very prudent response, both as citizens when people hear or they're aware of something, to bring that to the attention of the Joint Terrorism Task Force or their local police department, because there's always that chance that you have the small cells of people operating that have gone under the radar and were not detected. And it's a legitimate concern because we're talking about a massive clash of historic ideology, and from a country currently that has exhibited and stated a hate for the United States and a hate for Israel, and their continuing attempt to have the ability to destroy both. So it's a vanguard approach, and all of us need to be aware and communicative about it.
So the slogan, if you see something, say something, is particularly appropriate now. You would urge Americans to be kind of on the lookout for anything unusual.
Absolutely.
We're getting word that this attack in Karachi involved hundreds of people storming the embassy, smashing windows. It says that police and paramilitary forces there fired tear gas and used batons to disperse the crowd. One person was actually killed. So Americans really all over the globe need to be concerned right now and take steps to ensure their safety.
Undoubtedly, and it's a concern in all these locations because, again, it's a class of ideology, and we have a battle that's going on that is historic in nature, and people are called to arms for this, and they are our enemy, and they see any Americans and Westerners in general as a target of opportunity.
So would you expect that the danger is going to be eliminated once the attacks on Iran stop, or is this something we have to worry about for the next 6 months, year? How long does the threat of blowback in this country, how long does that exist?
This is decades and centuries. It has been going on for some time. It is not going to be mitigated with the political resolution here, because again, we have an ideology that identifies us in the US and the West as the enemy of God, essentially. And people are called to respond, and it goes on really in perpetuity. So the level of awareness has to be maintained, and the realization that we are dealing with something that is an historic clash of theology, ideology, politics, and that people are committed to it in a way that makes them incredibly dangerous. And so we have to keep the awareness going forward. This is just another one of the heightened calls for people that radicalize in this area, and it is not going to diminish on this outcome.
Bernard Zapor. Bernard, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.